Alrighty. Oh, we're back. Hello. 2021, first episode of Veeam Product Strategy Live. Total episodes 12. Amazing that we got through the first year. 11. We're back into 2021. And we're back talking about V11, which GA'd yesterday. But before that, let's introduce Michael Cade and David Hill to the program today. Hey, guys.
Mate. It's amazing that we've managed to get 12 episodes and no one at Veeam even knows we're doing this.
Exactly. And I don't think anyone's
under the radar.
Under the radar. And just for those that are watching and, maybe you're used to the other Veeam Lives that are on, the ones that are on LinkedIn with a few of our teammates. It's not like that. This episode,
professional ones.
The professional ones, yeah. This one is a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit more irreverent. We just want to have a good conversation, have a bit of fun. So welcome to everyone who's joined. I believe we had quite a good number joined to start with. And what we're going to do today, we're going to talk a little bit about V11. Obviously, that's what we're going to spend most of the time about. But the one thing we wanted to start with was go through a journey because about 12 months ago, we released V10. Hence why 12 months later we got V11. But what we wanted to really sort of talk about from a product strategy perspective is what does that look like in the team? Because obviously for the 12 months, we go through a cycle. We go through a release cycle. It all starts basically from today for the next version. So I thought, Michael, let's talk a little bit about V10 to V11 and, what apart from the pandemic and COVID, which kind of kicked in pretty much as soon as we dropped this, what's the first kind of few weeks leading into a post-release into that, next release cycle?
Yeah, I guess now that we've got, so hopefully you guys are all going to see like the build-up of content that we've been creating as a group over the last 3 months. And what we get to do now is more community content. So we get to actually get down into the product, work out what we can do, like what else is there. So from a product point of view, from a product management point of view, there's always like obviously a target as to what the feature is going to achieve for our customers. And that's really what the feedback has brought, and the whole wheel has made it work that way. I think the most interesting part of our job now is actually going to take those features and seeing what else we could do with them. Like being able to unearth other use cases for that. And that's kind of, I'd say, well, that's a constant thing. We're always looking for the stories to be told around like use cases about doing stuff with the technology. I'm pretty confident that we're still finding things that came in version 10 that we just didn't know about. They might not have made it into the release notes, but they're still there. Like there's so much in these releases that you just don't know or consume them all from day one. So this is the time where we jump on it and then get to blog about that and talk about and demo all of this new good stuff before it all starts again in however many weeks and months.
Yeah, I mean, for you and I, Michael, this is our, I want to say, 5th cycle that we've gone through in terms of major VBR release. And David, I think this is your 3rd cycle of releases. So maybe give a bit of your perspective, because obviously you've been at a few different software companies. You were at VMware before, which obviously did things a lot different to what we do as Veeam. But, what's your take on this cycle and how we enter this next phase?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one, because obviously you spend all year preparing for the launch and the release, and you're obviously learning about the product, and now it's a case of figuring out what we're going to have in the next version, what features and capabilities of product management thinking about and working on that. And if you think about the past year as well, from my perspective, we launched V10 of VBR, but then for my focus, there was another 4 releases of different products around, like Veeam Backup for AWS, Veeam Backup for Azure, Veeam Backup for Google Cloud. How many times can I say Veeam Backup as well? It's like, but so it's you focus on, obviously Veeam Backup and Replications are our core piece of the platform that we're building, but it's all the other components that go with it as well. And then you look at V11, and all the integration pieces with like all the other products that we have, like VAO as well and stuff, and how it all ties together is some of the focus that we have to look at. So it's a case of figuring out what's going to come, where we're going to go, and then what we're doing with the other products, because obviously the way that Veeam does it, everything's modular. So, you know, if you look at Veeam Backup for AWS as an example, you don't have to be a Veeam Backup and Replication customer to use that. You can have it separate if you're just like an AWS native customer, or if you're already leveraging VBR, then you can use VBR to go and protect your workload as well. And they all tie in together as this modular platform. And figuring all that out is the big thing of how's it going to work, how's it going to fit together, and then figuring out what we need to put together so that it for the customers as well.
Yeah, just before we get to the countries, because we want to show where people are from with the map, but I think Michael made a really good point. So as we go into this cycle, so just as we exited V10, moving to V11, what happens is, you know, we get a little bit of a look at some of the top line features that are coming. So, you know, we might, in this case, we would have been told about, you know, CDP, the archive tier, and a few other bits, but we don't get to know about everything. So Michael made a really good point that through the year, we get little tidbits about some of the other features and enhancements, but when that what's new drops, like if you guys will talk about the launch event a little bit later on that happened yesterday, Anton, you know, basically wrote an 11-point font, about 20 pages worth of content, right, in what's new. And some of that stuff I read through yesterday, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that. That is cool. Now, that might seem surprising to a lot of you guys out there, but that's the reality of the situation. When you're developing a product like this, you know, you want to get the top line features out there. So you've got the top 10, 20, but it's everything underneath the surface as well that makes the product. So when we say we've released V11 with 200 plus features and enhancements, that's true. That's the beauty of software, that you can develop so many little bits and pieces that just make the software that much better. So I think that's a really good point as well. So that's part of what we do. All right, let's bring the map up so we can see what's happening. And that's a dominant map. That's a really good map. Quite happy. So let's have a look. So we got, in no particular order, we'll go Serbia, Canada, India, Connecticut, I think that's a state, Brazil, Germany, these are like Arkansas, Austria, Turkey, Kenya, Georgia, the state of Georgia, not the country of Georgia, Indonesia, Thailand, Pakistan, Scotland, Egypt, France, Vietnam, Slovakia, South Africa, and obviously Australia as well. So that's a really good start, guys. So thanks for watching. Thanks for, you know, joining in and listening to us talk about, you know, the stuff that we talk about. So just to finish off that talk about the cycle and where we move into it. So after we get told about, you know, what's coming, we then do some internal training. We have SE training, and they get taught about those top line features as well and other bits and pieces. And that kind of takes us to about August-ish, you know, and then from there we're starting to look at like tech previews or running into betas. And the first betas typically run in about that sort of H2 situation. So we typically run betas, a couple of them, we get it out there, get our customers, get our partners to, you know, manned by the SEs, test the software, work out all the bugs, and then basically run through marketing, pump up, content planning, and then that's about sort of October, and then we hit RC, which is the release candidate, and then we get to RDM, which is usually about 2 weeks out, and then we get to GA. So it's simple. All this happens magically. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of work that goes into it, we wanted to basically point out. So when we get to something like this, a lot of people are very happy. Kudos to the R&D team, to QA, engineering, PM, you know, PMM, which is product management, marketing, product strategy, all the engineering. Tons of people to say thank you for. And what are we saying thank you for? It's V11. Okay, so Michael, just because I've been talking for a little bit, do you want to take over and maybe talk a little bit about, you know, the top line features in V11 as we went, if you can remember? It happened yesterday.
Oh, yeah, no, I think I can remember. So so the first one, in fact, let's go with the 5, and then that brings it back to you as well. Then, Spiteri, see, strategically, always thinking about how to bring it back into the story. So the first one is around continuous data protection. So we started talking about CDP. I remember because me and Anthony were both on stage as a project back at Veeam 2017 in New Orleans. You remember them times when you could be in person and have thousands of people, all community and yeah, conversations, beers and all sorts, and learning and education, all that good stuff. Yeah, they were the days. So we started talking about CDP then, and obviously from that is around, like, we want to get it right, but we also want it to be right for all of our customers. It's not a focused product just for enterprise. It's not a focused product just for the mid-market or SMB. It has to be very agnostic and flexible for all of those types of customers that we have across the world. So as the first and foremost, and I'll let Anthony, you can go in if we're going to go into any of the tech detail, but I think the big thing that the concentration from us is keeping it simple, keeping it flexible, but then also making sure that it works. That's probably the first and foremost of all of our features, is that we're not going to release something that's half-baked. It is going to come out the blocks and it is going to work, and it's going to say what we say it does. Like, that's the nature of how Veeam has been for the last 13 years, is that we deliver on what we've said and what we're bringing. So that's CDP. I think. Do you want me to go through all of them, Anthony?
Just rock through a few of them, and then I think what we'll do is we'll then talk about a few of the lesser known ones, right?
So then it was myself, and I went through and did the hardened Linux repository from a demo perspective. And this, again, it really highlights that simple, flexible approach. So no, you don't have to be a Linux admin or a guru to be able to spin these up and leverage these.
So your beard is getting long.
What's that?
Your beard is getting long.
Yeah, I still can't play in that world. But yeah, that whole bring your own Linux distribution, bring your own hardware, and really enable the ability to have your own immutable backup, primary backup storage to keep those 714 30-day type retentions. But then you're not locked into a particular hardware vendor or even a Linux distro when you come to renew that hardware in 3-5 years. Or even if from a capacity point of view, you don't need to bring the same hardware, you don't need to bring the same appliance type approach. It's all very flexible, and you build that out, and it also goes hand in hand, or it can go hand in hand with our scale out backup repository. And yeah, there's lots of flexibility, but the power of having the ability to have that primary backup in an immutable state is the key benefit there.
Yeah.
And then we get on to how do we extend what we've already done around the scale out backup repository. So, or at pre-version 11, we had our performance tier. So on-premises, 714, 30-day type retention. Then we had our capacity tier, which is the ability to offload and tier into object storage. And then how about that longer term, that write once, hopefully read never type tier that goes up into like AWS Glacier or Deep Archive or the Azure Archive tier as well. And really it's about just being cost efficient to that and being able to store your backups for longer in the most cost effective way possible. And there's lots of other things around that I'm sure Anthony's going to be blogging about, talking about over the next couple of months. But
yeah. Hey, Michael, just quickly, we had a question. We don't usually do interactive questions, but for the guys listening, please ask questions if you want. We're here to answer them at the same time. So Sunil has said, does ransomware protection only work with Linux repositories? So maybe just explain the yes and no of that answer, because it is a yes and no answer. Michael.
What? Sorry, I missed the question.
All right. Does ransomware working beautifully? So this is why we don't take questions. Does ransomware protection only work with Linux repositories?
Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're using the immutable flag within the Linux file system. So we're using the chatter command. So any distribution that has the ability to use the chatter command, then we can use the immutable flag. So yes, today it has to be Linux. I'm pretty sure that our product management R&D will be researching what we can do from other operators.
However, extending that to basically leveraging, say, an object storage extent, that's when obviously you can leverage that for ransomware protection as well. And obviously there's other methods of ransomware protection that aren't immutability, air-gap backups, taking it off the tape, moving it to a Cloud Connect provider. So yeah, I think Sunil, you were asking specifically about ransomware as it pertains to immutability on Linux, but obviously that question of does ransomware protection only work with Linux? Obviously no, it works with a lot of different combinations of repositories and methodologies in terms of where you put your data. David, do you want to, have you got any top line features that you want to mention or talk about?
Yeah, so my favorite kind of top line features is the native integration for cloud workloads in V11. So anyone who kind of, maybe it went under the radar with version 10A, you could kind of install a plugin and natively protect your AWS workloads. Well, as of V11, there's no plugins or anything. It's just all natively included. So you can go into your managed servers, same way you would add like a vCenter or a Hyper-V. You can go and add like AWS or Azure in there. And then you can just go and protect all your Azure and AWS workloads directly from VBR. And what's really good about that is, when you think about that, how we always talk about that single data management platform, being able to see all your backup jobs and all your backup policies in that one place makes it very easy to manage. So you can have like all your vSphere backups, all your Hyper-V, Nutanix, Windows, Linux agents, and now you can also have all like your AWS instances, and not just EC2 instances, but RDS. You can manage all like your VPC backups, and the same with Azure. You can go over to Azure and protect all your Azure VMs and stuff, all natively through the Veeam Backup and Replication console. And as I kind of said earlier as well, the great thing about this is it doesn't matter whether you're a Veeam Backup for AWS customer or anything. If you've never protected your AWS workloads, it's really simple to just right click and say, go protect these workloads out in AWS just through VBR. And I think that is one of the key kind of features that goes under the radar a little bit, all this integration and native integration that we're building into the platform as well. So you don't have all these different products scattered around and managed through different UIs. It's all done natively through VBR.
Yeah, and one of the other top of fives, there was 5 main branches of messaging, that we released, and one of them was about Veeam powered BAS and DRAS, right? And what you're talking about there extends from there, right? Because we also released an update to our availability, that's the old name, Service Provider Console, which should just be called Console. So we're up to V5 of that. That's for our service providers. There is an enterprise play there, but mostly for our providers, right? So what David's talking about there, and I love to talk about this around awareness and control. So effectively, those customers that would have traditionally been backing up workloads, which were VMware, VMs, Hyper-V, they might have had a remit to move to the cloud, to move to AWS. So they've actually taken a workload and shifted it into AWS. So now effectively they're not backing it up with VBR on premises, they're backing it up, or were they backing it up? They might use our product, right? And so they've got that sort of ability to back it up with the plugin, or now that's natively included in V11. They can see that again in the VBR console. So the workload that they have awareness of, they can do it with that feature now, and that extends to Azure. The availability console, or console, I still can't get that one right. It's horrible. It's as bad as vCloud Director and Cloud Director, and it's just implanted in the brain. With console, we will be aware of that as well. So with console, we're able to drive service revenue for our providers to actually do something around that awareness and control, which leads them to charge around managed services. So there's a whole stack, and this is what Michael and David are talking about. We're not just sort of thinking about a V11 release as being backup and replication. In fact, we released a version of Veeam 1. We released a new version of Windows Agent, Linux Agent. a bunch of Oracle RMAN plugins for all sorts of distributions, ones that you wouldn't have heard of and ones that you do hear about. SAP HANA for Linux and Oracle, and also brand new a Mac agent as well. So this wasn't just a V11 release. We've launched a ton of products with this actual release here, right? So it's really exciting. But suffice to say, all the integration pieces now are working together, okay? And I think that's what makes it really more interesting, that we're able to release on a fairly consistent cadence, a really reliable piece of software with so many features. If you look at a lot of competitors, they all release a feature maybe every 6 months, but it might have 2 or 3 enhancements, and that's it. And I'm not joking there. It's no word of a lie. Okay, so I love the way that we do this, and it's one of the reasons why it's really exciting to be working. Who would have thought working for a backup company, David? Who would have thought we would have said that was exciting? But it is. It's one of those things. All right, let's just take another question. One from Richard. David, I think maybe you can answer this. Is it possible to back up the Google Cloud to all of the Google Cloud to the local NAS?
I'd say no. You can't back up the whole of Google Cloud to NAS. But no, so we can obviously back up workloads running in Google Cloud with Veeam Backup for Google Cloud. We just released recently version 1 of that product. So what you'll notice with our cloud products is version 1 is providing the capabilities to protect those workloads in the cloud. So with Google Cloud, you can actually back up all your Google VMs, use Google Snapshots, offload those snapshots out to Google Object Storage. And then once we release version 2, that's when the integration will come into VBR. Once we have that integration.
So there's no external repository just yet?
Not there. So with Google Cloud, there's an external repository. So what I was going to say was you can do like backup copy jobs. So you just dive in there. You just don't let me finish, do you? So
well, you speak so slow sometimes. Let's get to the point.
Because I'm thoughtful. I'm thoughtful. So we can all babble really fast like you do, but I like to.
Sorry, go finish your train of thought.
Sure.
While Michael loses it over there. Okay, producer, screen back on David so he can finish.
So with you've lost my train of backup copy jobs.
Yeah.
So
external repository, backup copy jobs.
Yeah, you can point Veeam Backup and Replication to that object storage repository in Google Cloud and enable backup copy jobs. So while you can't copy the whole of Google's cloud to your local repositories, you can copy your backups that you've taken of your Google VMs to your local repositories, whether it's like Sober or whatever you want to do, and do it that way. Is that okay? Is that all right, Anthony?
All right, yeah, good. All right, let's go to the map and let's see where if we've expanded all over the. Oh, look at that! There's a lot of green there. So let's have a look and see the updates. We've got Atlanta, Greece, North Macedonia, specifically Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Russia, Guatemala. Hey, peace out. And Argentina as well. So that's a really good representation. And thank you all for listening. And the entertainment will continue shortly. Okay, so now that we've gone and done a little bit of that, what I wanted to sort of talk about, just to kind of wrap up, is to talk a little bit about the lesser known enhancements, or maybe your top features. So, David, I'm going to start with you again.
You sure? You sure I won't talk too slowly?
No. It's speed up a little bit. Just 25%. What is your top feature in V11? It can't be the plugins or the native integration. It has to be something different.
Well, that's not fair, is it? So my top feature is the hardened repositories and the fact that we have all the required, they're not certifications, but we meet all the requirements for financial institutions to be able to store our data like from a worm perspective.
Excellent. All right. Just before we get on to Michael, there was another question. I'm loving the questions today, guys. This is awesome.
Did I say that quick enough? Was that fast enough for you?
Yeah. The questions are rocking in. You can drop the joke now. It's all good. We're past. When is CDP available for general release? Well, it is available now because it was part of V11. So that's Alex. It's available now. And what would be your main competitive points against a competitor? So, interestingly enough, if you want to talk about competitive differences, my biggest thing about that with CDP is the fact that we are a lot more scalable from the outset. So it's basically a start small and grow. So a lot of other CDP implementations require a bit of hardware or a VM or a bit of resource against every host. And you might be only protecting 2 or 3 workloads or 2 or 3 VMs in a cluster, right? But you still have to have all this wasted resource on every host. And if you've got like a 20 host cluster, there's a lot of wasted resources. So with our CDP proxies, you can basically start small and ramp them up as required. Okay, and that's a really key point against the competition as well. And then I think there's a little bit of simplicity as well with regards to what we're doing. It's there. You get everything in the console, but also then from a cost perspective, I'm not going to talk specifics because I don't like talking about licensing and cost specifically, but roughly we are about 1/3 the cost of some of our competitors, which for the same or better functionality and scalability and reliability is a really good point to have. Okay, just a couple other questions. We'll answer a couple more. Is there any roadmap for supporting Linux clusters or Linux setups with shared disks? Michael, do you know anything about that? I would say not at the moment, but...
that seems pretty generic as well. I would say head over to the forums and just ask that, because it depends really what you're trying to back up and what and where they are. If they're virtual machines, if they're physical machines, what distribution they are, if it's an Oracle box, whether it's using Oracle RMAN. There's quite a lot of what-ifery that would determine what the question is. But very interested to hear what the use case is, and if we can do it, great. If not, we want to know about it so that we can make that. I'd say
maybe put them in the forums. Go to the Veeam Forums and pose that question, and then you'll get an answer directly from the product managers themselves. So it's a good way to attack that. Last question is from Titus. Awesome name. I had a customer asking for Veeam backup directly to tape without any staging. Is that something we should expect soon? Michael, again.
Yes. Yeah. So I could probably. So again. That's a broad question in that could be image-based backups going to tape. That could be NAS. I can safely say that we've had so many requests about sending NAS directly to tape. It's something that we're researching, something that we're definitely looking into. So, yeah, I guess let's see what happens from a Veeam on and beyond that, and then we can definitely get talking into.
We're in that cycle. We talked about the cycle. Yeah. We're in this cycle where we get to understand what's coming next, right? So it's a bit early for that, but certainly put it on the forums, get it out there, and as this cycle progresses, that's when things happen. Now, before we just kick in, I just want to plug the real LinkedIn Live events, the ones that happen on the Monday and Friday. There's one tomorrow with Rick and Melissa. And they're going to sort of follow on and do a little bit more of a follow-up to the release, to the launch yesterday, talk a little bit about GA, and hold a general Q&A session. So I think that it starts at about the same time or 1 hour later than this one. We'll just confirm that a little bit later on. But it was at 12 p.m, so a little bit later than this one, 1 hour later. Awesome. All right, so just to finish off, I want to go through a couple of my own favourite What's News. I obviously looking at CDP, we've talked about the archive tier. For me, from a service provider perspective, VMware Cloud Director, we've finally put in something called site-to-site replication for VCD, something that we've been talking about for a long time. I was talking about it before I joined Veeam when I was working for a service provider. And it's just one of those things where the time was right now to get it out. And a lot of service providers are jumping for joy at that. We've actually released our own HTML5 tenant plugin as well, so our own native plugin, fully supported, which followed a community initiative that we launched last year on that. So good to see engineering pick up with that. I think that's a really cool one. A new API endpoint, which obviously for all our automation friends out there, which we know there's a lot of you out there, this is something that's pretty cool in itself. Now, very quickly, I wouldn't call it, I'm remiss to call it technical debt, but basically, given a 13-year-old company, you develop for the times, and the API that we had was based on how you did an API, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and it did the trick. APIs have moved forward very quickly, and so what we understood is that we needed to create a new modern API, one that's JSON based, one that's got a modern interface, Swagger interface, and all that kind of stuff. That's what we've come up with in V11. It's standalone, and it basically is installed by default. I think with Michael help me here with the licensing, but VAL and Enterprise Plus licensing, you basically get it as part of the default install. So that's really exciting. It's not a fully feature parity API with what you can do in PowerShell or the UI, but it's got a really solid initial list of endpoints and methods to be able to get through. So that's a great start for us. Another thing that I will talk about, I've got a big list, and I'll plug it. So if you go to anthonyspiteri.net and look for my V11 top new features post, so anthonyspiteri.net, search for that, you'll get basically a list of these and other features. The other one I wanted to call out was the PowerShell module, and the fact that we did some really cool work around the Linux file level recovery. So we don't need an appliance now to basically do, or a helper appliance to do file level recoveries on Linux, which was, a bit of a nuisance for not only enterprises, but also service providers. So, and there is a ton of other features. So head to that site and also check out the What's New document. Michael, have you got anything that you want to add in terms of, browsing through the What's New and any little bits of a hidden gem, so to speak?
Not so much. It's not hidden. It's all over the place. But the storage snapshot integration. So we're traditionally known for what we've done around like VMware storage snapshots, offloading that down to like the big storage vendors out there, the NetApps, the HPEs, etc., the Pures, and that was really just focused on VMware backup. So what version 11 has brought out is the ability to also leverage those storage snapshots with our physical Windows agents. So think about those physical machines that have to be physical, maybe because of licensing. So database servers, they have a LUN presented from the storage system. Traditionally, or with the agent prior to version 11, we would have to do that like manually, as if it was we'd just see it all, including the iSCSI or fiber channel disk as a whole machine, and we'd just take that whole backup. In version 11, though, we can leverage the storage snapshots to pull that data out. And then also going one step further with NAS, so being able to be even more snapshot friendly about when we take NAS snapshots from the likes of NetApp ONTAP, from Dell EMC Isilon, from Lenovo, I think it's the DM series, but being able to do that again by leveraging the storage snapshot as a way of pulling that out of the source, which helps us with locked files and all of that stuff. So they're in there, and they're all just beneficial to making that backup and removing the impact of performance on the production. I think that's an ongoing thing with everything that we've spoken about across the board, is constantly making things faster, making things more efficient, making it as simple as possible, and all of that good stuff. Yeah,
that's a lot of those under the hood things, and we presented on that, you and I, last year at Veeam Live. We did our top, I think it was top 11 features that were not released at the time, and a lot of those were engine enhancements, UI enhancements, which just all help. And again, the What's New document is worth the read, because I think it shows the value of a release like V11. Right, so we'll start to wrap up a little bit. We will obviously try and get these in I think we're going to do these about once a month. I think we're going to target this year. So not like last year, was a bit more sporadic. And the next episode we'll go back to talking not so focused on product and just talk about industry trends in general, what's happening in the world, beyond COVID and beyond the normal stance. We'll talk a little bit about tech. Melissa will come in and do a couple of episodes and put her spin on it. Then we'll get some other people in there. And yeah, it should be a good rest of the year. 2021. I don't know if it's looking up just yet, but it's looking better than last year at this point in time. So let's just have a final say. One more thing about V11 from everyone on. So I'm going to start with Michael again.
So the one thing that I'd talk about is, so you've mentioned around the automation. So I'll go back to the Linux piece. So there's quite a lot of Linux improvements. So I think actually now, if you look at all of the Veeam components, let's say that, so the Veeam management server, we still have a requirement that needs to be Windows and lives on a SQL database, but everything else can now be Linux. Just the flexibility around like the file level recovery for Linux backups and Linux machines, where we would have to spin up an FLR appliance, a file level recovery appliance in your virtualized environment to be able to recover or be able to see and use that and see the files and folders. Now we can use any of your existing Linux managed servers, and just having proxies have got all of the transport mode, or the majority of the transport modes, storage integration for starters. It's not just
that's a big one we haven't talked about. That became equal to the Windows proxy, right? So
yeah, definitely kind of equal. I think the only caveat is if you're using NFS storage, you can't do. I don't think you could do direct NFS or NFS storage.
Direct attach,
But it's very much there, and obviously that we are looking at that. So yeah, don't think that we're just going to stop. And I think that's the other thing about V11 is that there's so many under the hood engine enhancements that you probably won't even see, but it will have been done to tweak and make things better, more performant, and just faster in general, whether that's from a backup point of view or from a recovery, or even just being able to do something with that data as well. That's another big focus.
All right, cool. David.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually not mention V11, but my favorite thing about all Veeam's products is, remember, you can still use them for free as well.
Very good.
So you've got the community edition, you've got the up to 10 instances in any of the cloud products, and that's a big differentiator, and that's something that's important for a lot of small businesses who can't typically afford a lot of licenses. The fact that you can use Veeam for free to protect small environments,
and crazy.
That is the biggest thing for me from a Veeam perspective. We can have all these bells and whistles, but the fact that people can use it for free, and still, even if you're a Veeam customer and you left and you want to go do some restores, you can use the Veeam product to go do them restores as well. So check it out. Go to go.veeam.com/V11 and then go try some licenses with Community Edition.
Yeah, that's a really awesome point, actually, that every single, there's a few limitations in terms of, I don't know off the top of my head, like Cloud Connect and a few other things, but effectively everything that we've put into V11, you can test and basically use up to 10 instances. Michael, even NAS, it's free up to what number? I don't want to get it wrong. 250?
Yeah, I've just changed. It's just recently changed from, it's 10 instances. It's 10 vols. So an vol equals 500 gig of NAS. So times that by 10, you've got that much NAS. You've got 10 VMs, 10 agents for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, like all of them. Any of the cloud products that David looks after, like literally, you could have I use it to protect my home environment and my.
I'm actually just looking up the what's new right now. So Community Edition, you can protect now allowing protection of over 5 terabytes of NAS data with the free license, with the first 500 gigs of data not consuming a license at all. So there you go.
Yeah,
crazy.
And just for clarification, because lots of people get confused with this, a VUL is Veeam Universal Licensing, and it lets you protect anything. We don't care where it is, what it is, or what platform it's on. As long as we support protecting that platform, you can back it up. So, and that's the cool thing. And you can also move it around, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's a real good point. So, okay, there's 10 instances that you can protect, but actually, wherever you want to restore that to, all of the instant recovery functionality, all the entire VM recovery, entire restore functionality is all free. You don't pay for any recovery. So if you've got your VBKs, which is your backup files, you can recover them really wherever you need them to be recovered using the community edition, direct restore to Azure, to AWS, to vSphere, to Hyper-V. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, cool. And just to reiterate one of the comments, from Dennis, I'm mostly amazed that I found a disk with my backups done by free endpoint when it was called endpoint 4 years ago, and I could restore it with V11 agent. I mean, that's amazing backwards compatibility. The data's always your data, isn't it?
You could go back even further, like with VMware backups that were made with the first version, like whatever version, and still be able to recover them now. I still find that pretty amazing.
Awesome. All right, then. Good stuff. Well, let's wrap this up then. Again, David said it, but just to reiterate one more time, if you didn't see the V11 launch, it's still available. You can register for it by going to go.veeam.com/V11. You'll be asked to put in some details, and you can see the event where you can see Danny Allen talking, Anton Gostev. You'll see Michael, myself, and Rick do some great demos, some customer engagement, and I want to plug at the end of that, we released a brand new YouTube video. So if you go to our YouTube video channel on YouTube, and basically you'll see a brand new, what would you call it? It's like I know what the Aussie vernacular for it is, but what would you call it? Like it's a satire video, or it's a
parody.
It's a parody video, yeah. But anyway, suffice to say, if you want a good laugh, and if you want it, because it's all very representative of a lot of us IT people, go have a look at it. You'll be amazed by it. It's a little bit funny, and watch out for the Easter eggs. So with that, let's wrap it up. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, David, and we will see you guys next time on Veeam Product Strategy Live.